Hey guys, Johnny Nerd Out. Today's video I want to go over the process of building an e-bike. I get asked this question all the time. It's overwhelming. Where do I start? Whether you have a bike or not, how do you outfit it with a motor, how do you outfit it with a battery, etc., etc. So that's what this video is all about. Alright guys, if you're new to this channel, I'm Johnny Nerd Out. I'm a professional e-bike builder. I convert regular bikes into killer e-bikes all day, every day. That's what I do for a profession. So if you're interested in things like that, check out my other videos. Go to johnnynerdout.com. I sell all the e-bike components you need. I even do video consultations. I do virtual help. We could jump on a Zoom call and I could help you troubleshoot your bike, whether it's a pre-made or custom-made e-bike. All right, so let's get right into this. So you may be thinking, well, I want to build an e-bike, but what do I do? How does this work? First of all, it all starts with a good donor bike. And that means whether you have a bike, if you already have a bike and it fits you well and it works well, meaning that it brakes, like it's got good brakes, you feel confident on it, and it's sized to you, then great, move on to the next step. If not, start with finding a good bike. I recommend riding one. Go on, your local reseller, your used marketplace, whatever that is, whether it's Craigslist or Marketplace, Facebook, whatever it is. Go and ride a bunch of bikes and see which ones feel good, which ones you like that are good. Preferably it would have disc brakes. The best are going to be hydraulic disc brakes, then regular disc brakes, then rim brakes. In general, some rim brakes are better than mechanical disc brakes. Some mechanical disc brakes are better than hydraulic disc brakes. There's different levels, but in general, that's how you go. After you find your bike that is like, okay, here's the thing, is finding your bike is, think about what kind of riding you're going to be doing. Are you going to be commuting just to work down the gravel road or down the paved road? Don't get a fat tire bike for that. Maybe get something with a front suspension that has a lockout. So if you ever, if you want to take it camping, if you plan on doing a lot of camping, plan on getting a bike for what kind of riding you're doing. If you're planning on just going down, trails that are not paved and down loose gravel, maybe look towards a fatter tired bike. Maybe if you want a snow bike, get a very fat tired bike, etc., etc. So find the bike that's going to be perfect for you. I always say a hardtail mountain bike is kind of like the Swiss Army knife because you could outfit it to be whatever you want. You could usually put fatter tires on, so if you want to do some off-roading, you could put skinnier tires on, more road-oriented tires if you want to do it more as a commuter. And you could usually outfit those things with a rack. And you could put pannier bags on the back. You could outfit that thing to be like a mule. So that's kind of like if you're ever stuck and you're like, I don't know what to do, get a hardtail mountain bike. And if you ever want it to be like a comfort rider, you could put stem adapters on it, you could put new handlebars on it, you can make it more upright to make it more comfortable. The next step is finding what motor to put on it. There's a lot of different motors out there, and I think a lot of people get overwhelmed by that. So it really kind of depends on what you're looking for. First of all, you're going to need to measure your bottom bracket, and that's the length in between the pedals, but it's just on the frame. And make sure you get the right size motor to fit that. You could either go with a BBS HD, it's a 1,000 watt motor. Those are very refined, those are awesome for commuter bikes. You could go with the BBS 02, that's also a very good motor. It's a 750 watt version, which is probably going to be street legal wherever you live, and it's going to be a little bit cheaper. You could also go with the Chainring motor. That's going to be less powerful, but it is going to have torque sensing if that's important to you. Check out my videos on whether you need torque sensing or not. But honestly, you'd probably be fine with just going with a BBS 02 motor if you have a standard bottom bracket size, which is 73 millimeters or what. And you can check out my video here on how to measure your bottom bracket. Find out what kind of battery you need. For the most of those motors that I carry, the BBS 02 and BBS HD, so if you buy them from me, are gonna work with either a 48 or 52 volt battery. Either one of those will work with those motors. And you just wanna find out what size you need to fit your range. How far are you planning on riding? Do you want a 10 or 20 mile range in between charges? Or do you want a 50, 60 plus mile range in between charges? A 52 or a 48 volt 10 amp hour battery is probably going to give you about a 30 mile range depending on how you ride, assuming that you're going to be pedaling a little bit with it. 52 or 48 volt 17 amp hour battery is probably going to get you closer to that 50 mile plus range with a little bit of pedaling. Also, another factor is obviously it depends on how big you are, what kind of terrain you have, and if you're just using the throttle and not really pedaling and stuff. Another factor is what kind of frame do you have? You want to pick out a bike that has a frame that has a big enough triangle inside that can hold a battery. And then if it has a small one, you want to measure it. You know, most battery, if you go on my website, you go under shop, go under batteries, they will have battery dimensions on it. You know, write down those, cut out a little cardboard thing or whatever, just take a tape measure and make sure that it's going to fit inside your triangle. That's pretty much it for sizing the motor and sizing the battery. If you have further questions, you could definitely book a consultation with me. I'd be happy to do a 10-minute consultation. Tell me about your bike, tell me about your riding, and I could create you a price list and a purchase list that you could either buy from somewhere else or from me. I'd be happy to do that. Next, I would probably add in a gear shift sensor, no matter what type of mid-drive you're going with. It acts like an automatic clutch, and it cuts power when you're shifting, and that's going to really save your bike, your drivetrain, and everything. It's going to add reliability onto your system. So I definitely recommend adding a gear shift sensor. Now I know a lot of people are like, well, oh, I want to get your Cyclone motor because I saw your video on it. Cyclone is for if you're looking for a dirt bike alternative. If you're looking for a commuter bike, I don't consider the Cyclone a viable source just yet. Until they come up with a much more reliable, much more user-friendly version of the Cyclone, I don't recommend looking at the Cyclone motor kit for a reliable commuter. Look at the Bafang or the Tongsheng. Those two motors are gonna be for commuters. Choosing a display. A lot of people are like, what's the difference between the displays? Usually the kits come with a standard black and white display, which is fine for you if you don't need a bright color display and you don't need real-time voltage readout. So that's the difference between the color displays and the black and white. Mainly is the voltage display, in my opinion. It's a little bit more graphical. It'll show you a little bit more information. A lot of times it'll show you real-time power output, and it'll show you in voltage like 51.6 your battery's at. So it's a little bit more accurate instead of just that dummy fuel gauge, which is usually never accurate. And for color displays, they have the 500C, which I really like. It's a pretty, like a $30 upgrade depending on where you buy from. If you want to go up to a 850C or 860C, the 860C is a little bit nicer than the 850C. It's just a little bit nicer. But those two have USB output or input that you could charge your cell phone or charge rechargeable headlights. So if that's something important to you, I would consider getting either the 850C or the 860C display. I think they're also referred to as the DPC 14, DPC 18. There might be slight differences between there, but those four are the only ones that I know of right now that have USB input output for charging things. There's also the 750C, which does not have USB charging, but it's bigger and it's horizontal. So I usually recommend just getting the 500C. If you just want a basic upgrade with a little bit more information, go with the 850C, 860C if you want something that's got USB charging. There is an egg rider display, which is, I would say it's an advanced display. You could use your phone to program your motor from it, which is very nice. However, it can be a little, if this is your first time doing this, it's an advanced one because you have to register it with egg rider. You have to get drivers installed on your phone. You have to, it can be tedious. If you're not super technical savvy, do not get the egg rider, or don't even be thinking about it. Chainring buying. A lot of people are like, well, what chainring do I need to get with this? Unless you have a very specific style of riding in mind, I recommend just going with your stock chainring, only upgrading it if you have chainline issues. If you are not able to shift into your lowest gear, then get a chainring that's going to bring your chainline in closer to your bike. Usually that's a 42 tooth or a 46 tooth made by Lekkie. That's L-E-K-K-I-E. But usually you could find that out as you're doing the install. Unfortunately, it's one of those things you don't know until you're doing the install, because every bike geometry is different. Every chainstay has different angles that comes out. Sometimes you need to space your motor out. Some things you just don't know until you start doing the install. The good news is about 80% of bikes don't need that, and it's gonna work just fine. So unless you plan on riding off-road, low-speed climbing, like on a fat tire bike, then I would go with a smaller tooth chainring, something like a 28 tooth or a 36 tooth. Or if you're riding a commuter bike and you want to be pedaling along at very high speeds, like 25 or 30, I would go with something higher, like a 52 tooth. That's going to be, you're going to be pedaling at 30, 35 miles an hour, no problem. But for most people, I wouldn't worry about the chainring just yet. I would just stick with the stock chainring, find out if that's going to work for you, and then upgrade as needed. You know, ride it around, put like 100 miles on it, find out if that gear ratio is good for you, and if it's not, then upgrade. All right, hopefully that helped you. I know it didn't cover every single thing out there, but I think hopefully that covered as many things as possible. So, all right, thanks guys.